I welcome our next guest, Dr. Syed Tanveer Nasreen. She carries the legacy of spirituality from her family, which is a long Sufi past. She has been educated at Presidency College, Kolkata, Jadavpur University and JNU New Delhi, from where she did PhD. She is specialized in socio-cultural history and gender studies. She founded the Department of Women's Studies in the University of Burdwan, West Bengal. Dr. Nasreen has written and edited several books and articles on gender issues and cultural themes. She has served in several administrative positions in academics. She is also a trained Bharatanatyam dancer. Nowadays, she is serving as First Secretary and Director, Indian Cultural Center, High Commission of India, Maldives, since June 2009.
You may continue. You may continue. You are audible and visible both. You may continue, Dr. Syed Tanveer ji. We can see you and you can carry on. Thank you.
Uh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible and visible
Hello?
both. Yes, you are audible and visible both. Looking
Thank
forward to your message.
Namaskar. And thank you very much, United Consciousness Conclave, for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar. And thank you, Simranji, also for coordinating it so well and inviting me to this session. I would first congratulate you for choosing this topic, spirituality and woman empowerment. But then why I say women empowerment in place of woman empowerment, I'll come to it at the end of what I have to say. I don't really
Dr.
have much
Tanveer,
to say.
I have a small request. Your face is
Ji.
not completely visible. If you can lift the camera
Okay.
up,
Okay.
your face is not completely visible.
Good.
Now it is better.
Is it okay?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Correct. I'm actually speaking from my office, which is why I'm not really very comfortable with the. This is okay now, I believe. Yes. So I must congratulate you first on choosing a topic like this. This is a very, very challenging theme of our times right now. And with my experience of almost 2 decades of working on women's studies or gender studies, I would say that women empowerment is generally viewed or generally projected as a domain which is detached or removed from the domain of spirituality. But to my understanding, the two are very finely and intricately interwoven, and the interrelation is often so delicate. It is often so intricate, so fine, that it is not perceivable at times. But there definitely is a relation between the two, between women empowerment, woman empowerment, and spirituality. To my understanding, spirituality is a very deep personal journey, a very deep personal experience of an individual. And it is unique for every individual, which the recounting of which can be extremely challenging, because the person might not himself or herself be aware of the journey that one is going through until one completes the journey and then looks back. And often, even if recounted, might not be comprehensible to another individual. Spirituality, to my understanding, is a very deep personal journey. Now, the first point that I would like to make in this context is that women have often been sought to kept away from the path of spirituality under several pretexts, under patriarchal diktats and under what we would call a patriarchal conspiracy within each system. For instance, it would argue in one system that a virtuous woman can only be reborn as a male to attain the final liberation of the soul, the moksha. In other systems, outward practices and rituals prescribed for women can be significantly different from that of men. And sometimes women are ineligible for certain practices, etc. And this is a universal phenomenon of a patriarchal, restrictive system within an attempt that is to exclude or marginalize women in the spiritual domain that comes from a very deep patriarchal bias. And this is, I would like to underline, not particular to any system or any religious order. However, simultaneously, if this is one trend of conspiracy that works within each system to marginalize women, to exclude women from their experiences of spirituality, to demotivate women, simultaneously within the same systems, we can find ample scope that talk about inclusion of women, giving the soul of the individual the equal right as any other in the journey towards spirituality. And this, I would then say, is the dominant trend. Whereas the excluding trend, the attempt to exclude or the attempt to marginalize, is a minor subterranean idea that runs, patriarchal idea that runs within its system. This is the dominant trend that looks forward and gives ample scope when we talk about inclusion of women, giving the soul of the individual the priority and an equal right as any other in the journey towards spirituality. Now, whatever be the theoretical prescription, spirituality, to my understanding, is a very personal journey, I would again like to underline. And the journey may be enriched by our daily experiences, our environment, our level of learning and self-learning, swadhyaya as we call in our philosophy, the examples in it, the guidance one may be blessed with, margdarshan as we say, and the company that one keeps. And there is absolutely no gender discrimination whatsoever. There is absolutely no gender discrimination, I would like to underline, in this personal journey of spirituality. And this personal journey of spirituality ultimately unfurls itself, ultimately gathers itself in the collective journey towards spirituality, which is why I would again underline towards the end of what I have to say, that in case of woman empowerment, I would also like to mention women empowerment, because the individual merges itself in the collective and it becomes a collective journey of spirituality, a collective journey of consciousness. Looking at our own country, the spiritual journey has never been gendered. In other systems, for instance, in Islam too, talking of the final day of judgment, it has been said that to each one, his or her good and bad deeds will be taken into account. And coming to our own country, in the Indian thought on spirituality, this equality in itself is an indicator of woman empowerment. This idea of equality, the equality of the soul, the equality of the endeavor, is an indicator of woman empowerment, an indicator of gender empowerment, where all genders are taken as equal. And women have, since time immemorial, recorded and unrecorded, embarked on this spiritual journey and their achievements. Why these accounts are unrecorded, I have tried to say that not that everyone understood or still understands the significance of recording one's own spiritual experience, And the spiritual experience itself might not be understandable to the individual until a long time. This spiritual journey and their achievements had, in fact, alarmed the patriarchal systems, the patriarchal elements within each system, and led them to try to impose gender discrimination in the path of spiritual. This gender discrimination trying to bar women from certain experiences, bar women from public participation, bar women on the basis of their gender. Uh, Coming from the ancient times of Gargi, Maitreyi to medieval times in our country, when we have more concrete evidence, I would like to refer to Mirabai and her spiritual journey. Of course, we have numerous other examples, but I am fascinated by the journey of Mirabai. A princess and queen herself, the spiritual journey empowered Mirabai to an extent unheard of until then. And this spiritual journey of bhakti that churned within her, the journey that she underwent, the spiritual journey that she uh, undertook, led her to compose the sublime bhajans, the devotional hymns which continue to enthrall and inspire generations of Indians, and not just Indians. Mira's bhajans have been translated in numerous languages across the world. And when the poetic and the spiritual content have been analyzed, people are simply mesmerized by the spiritual journey of this princess and queen. Mirabai definitely was an epitome of spirituality. I would like to present my point that women achievers at different points of history have definitely been spiritually motivated to embark on not essentially, which might not essentially be visible as a spiritual journey like that of Mirabai's, but embark on a political, social journey of leadership. And the leadership also, the path breaking that happens in the life of a woman, and that assuming the role of leadership is also very important in this context. The inner power and courage that have distinguished them from others, in my judgment, were triggered by spirituality, a deep, serene understanding of the self and its purpose, the self and its power. And this ability of leadership, this ability of standing apart from the crowd and showing a path to others, the margdarshan, as we say, have been uh, motivated by a spiritual understanding of the self. And those who have imbibed that spirituality within themselves, women particularly, as we are talking about today, have been able to lead with their outstanding examples. The genuinely spiritual among men, too, I must admit, look forward to their co-travelers in the path of spirituality with the objective of empowerment. This also needs to be mentioned. In the last section of my talk, I would like to raise a little debatable though, but the very recent events of Iran, what we saw in that country. We have seen how a girl in Tehran, Mahsa Amini, was arrested on September 13th, perhaps, yes, for not wearing the hijab by the moral police. Now, when I was talking of, patriarchal ideas deterring women in the path of their spiritual achievement, uh, I was actually indicating these instances which we sometimes see around us. She was arrested for not wearing the hijab by the moral police, and she died 3 days later under mysterious circumstances. And this triggered one of the very important women's movements of our time. Not just a women's movement, it has been a movement in that country and has been against moral policing. And the success of that movement has led the Attorney General of that country to proclaim that moral policing will be withdrawn. And now I take this instance to underline that each of these protesters is a warrior, and the power of conviction and the confidence that came from a deep sense of spirituality. The person to be convinced to face the type of repression, where did they get the power to resist the oppression, the repression that was unleashed upon them? This power of conviction, this courage of conviction was motivated by the spirituality within each person who came forward to protest this against this. And that sense of discretion, that sense of judgment between what is correct and what is incorrect, what is wrong and what is right, is directed by the conscience, a conscience that is empowered by spirituality. Now, as I said, that each of the protesters we saw on social media, we saw on international news, the pictures of the protest, and each of these protesters, I would say, is a warrior who has been empowered by the idea of spirituality. And this is where the individual idea of spirituality, the individual empowerment of spirituality is manifested in the collective, and woman empowerment becomes women empowerment. And finally the empowerment of humanity. That is something that we are not going into right now, but the individual flourishing itself, the individual leading itself into the collective is a very important journey, not just a philosophical inward journey, but also a journey that takes individuals forward in initiating a change, in resisting all sorts of oppression, and underlining the individual liberty in the path of spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Tanveer. And we knew it that when you will speak, the justice will be done with the topic woman empowerment. I liked that you kept your topic very much contemporary and still rooted. You talked about how what are the roots of this inequality of treatment or disempowerment of women, maybe from patriarchal societies, or maybe some of the beliefs that women had to be reborn, like to be man, to be liberated, such inequalities. The definition that you gave of spirituality is whether woman thought about it visible or invisible, but behind every successful woman, you said there is an visible or invisible essence of spirituality. And definition, I liked it, that the deep understanding of self and its power is spirituality, which gave her power to protest against whatever she felt is inappropriate. And you mentioned about the latest happening in Iran, which has become a global moment, how the empowerment of one woman became the empowerment of all the women. And the underlying force is spirituality, because it gives us power to stand for what is right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tanveer, for being with us in all the initiatives of United Consciousness. You'll be happy to know that United Consciousness events are now being supported by G20 officially. And we are also a part of G20 Yagna now to spread the message of G20 across the world: one planet, one family, and one future. And the future belongs to us, future of happiness, togetherness. Thank you very much.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Dr. Tanveer Nasreen for coming onto the platform of United Consciousness. Thank you so much.